You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. A lot of people were certainly surprised at the news on Wednesday evening that Corey Raymond is leaving LSU to take the secondary coach position at Florida. And then we got the news today, Thursday, that Kevin Faulk also will not be returning as LSU's running backs coach. Faulk has been on staff for 4 years, as you all know. Kevin is, he is the greatest running back in LSU history, the most accomplished running back in LSU history. He has spent the last 4 years on LSU staff. After his playing days ended, he was coaching his son's high school at Karen Crow. He joined LSU in an off-field role as the director of player development for 2018 and 2019. In the last 2 seasons, Kevin Faulk has been LSU's running backs coach. And today we learned that he is not going to be back on staff. Ryan Clark was with us in hour one. He did visit with Kevin Faulk in his office today at Football Ops. Said there were tears and that Faulk will not be retained on staff in any capacity. So not on field or in any type of support role. So Kevin Faulk, his time at LSU on the football staff is over. Just about an hour ago, Kevin Faulk did tweet, and he tweeted out a Bible verse. Don't be conformed by the patterns of this world. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. R.I.P. KF, which is an ode to his salute to his daughter who passed earlier this year. So that's all Kevin Faulk has put out there as of right now. If you want Ryan Clark's thoughts on that, that's up on our After Further Review LSU YouTube channel. You can check that out. So Kevin Faulk will not return. He's the 5th assistant from last year's staff who now we know will not return, joining Corey Raymond, Mickey Joseph, Greg McMahon, and Tommy Moffitt. Moffitt, of course, strength and conditioning coordinator, was not one of the 10 full-time on-field staff roles, but still an integral part of what LSU has been the last 21 years. But some very familiar faces. And names who have meant a lot to LSU football. Tommy Moffitt over the last 21 years, Corey Raymond over the last decade, Kevin Faulk is an all-time leading rusher and member of the staff the last 4 seasons, Mickey Joseph, who is New Orleans high school royalty, who's been a member of the staff here at LSU, Greg McMahon, who was with the Saints and then with LSU, so well-known to people in these parts. It's been an emotional severing of ties with a lot of people who have meant a lot to LSU, to Louisiana football and culture. But this is something that happens when you have a new staff. Have you ever heard of Gleicher's formula? Probably not. But it was developed in 1960 by Mr. Gleicher. Maybe it's Gleicher. Don't know. But what he tried to do with that formula was put some sort of metric or measurement behind why human beings are resistant to change. And what he came up with is dissatisfaction times vision times the first concrete steps of moving on are all greater than resistance. So essentially, it's easier to be stuck in your ways than to change. All of those things have to come together to be greater than change. The quote is, the pain of loss is greater than the power of gain. Think about that again. The pain of loss is greater than the power of gain in the minds of human beings. That's just, it is how we are hardwired. It's not you or me or any of these coaches or human beings. We are innately hardwired to resist change. So it is very hard when Corey Raymond played at LSU. He's from New Iberia. He coached at LSU the last 10 years. It is harder for you and me and everybody to think maybe what we don't know, which on the other side of this, is better than what we do know now. That is harder for us innately to accept than what we know to be true and to be working. That's why human beings are resistant to change. That's why most humans die in the city where they were born. They don't move because it's what they know. We are, as people, innately resistant to change. But the great prophet Sheryl Crow told us a change will do you good. And that may be the case here. And I don't mean specifically with Corey Raymond or Kevin Faulk or any member of this staff. And I think Ryan Clark said it well when he was here in hour number one. Nobody's owed anything. No one's entitled to a job. How you go about making that announcement or how you treat people, how you handle it, certainly there needs to be a degree of respect there. And what you could certainly be disappointed with is the fact that Corey Raymond never had a conversation with Brian Kelly. I think that is, if true, poorly done. And same for someone like Kevin Faulk. But what I would say is, I'd pose you a question and say, how satisfied are you with LSU football over the last 15 years, starting with the Les Miles era in 2005 through now? How satisfied are you? It included a national championship in 2007, included the greatest regular season we'd ever seen in 2011, which ended in bitter disappointment, and then the greatest season in the history of college football in 2019. Some glorious moments, really big wins, perennial contenders. But isn't there a part of you that always thinks, man, if Les could have gotten the hell out of the way offensively, it could have been so much more? Don't you think part of that, like, don't we share that opinion collectively as LSU fans? Like, don't you look at 2006 and say, Jesus, Marcus Russell and Dwayne Bowe and Buster Davis and Early Doucette, and look at that team. You know, Brandon LaFell was a freshman on that team, and you had Keelan Williams and Joe Adai and Jacob Hester, and you look up and LaRon Landry and Glenn Dorsey, and you look at 2006 and you go, how did that team go to Auburn and score 3 points? You know what I mean? Like, there is that. How did 2011 go to the national championship game with no plan and ruin that great season? You know what I mean? Like, there's that. There is that. Like, what in the hell were you doing at Ole Miss in 2009 in the Clockett game? You know, like, how in the world did Ed Ogeron so grossly mismanage the roster and botch every staff hire he made? Like, it could have been so much more. Two coaches that we now know and understand to be what they are, won national championships at LSU. So to actually realize the potential that's been there, that's gone unrealized, even amid the greatest era we've ever seen in LSU, don't you have to make some changes? Like, Scott Woodward brought Brian Kelly here to bring a degree of legitimacy. I keep saying maturity, stability to this program. A guy that has won, built, and sustained success everywhere he's been at 4 different stops over the course of his career. That's why he's here. And if you want him to change those things that were wrong, that led to a lot of those head-scratching moments, you got to give him the autonomy to do it. You're paying him $100 million. So, like, do I think LSU's better with Corey Raymond on staff? Absolutely. Does that mean Kerry Cooks can't be a great defensive backs coach and get great players here? Like, of course not. Of course he can. He's going to have LSU on his chest. Bringing back Frank Wilson's a brilliant move. And, like, we'll see what he does at coordinators, but he's proven everywhere he's been that he can make those hires. But if you want to do something different than what you've been, you got to be willing to change. Now, don't misunderstand how he's gone about doing that, maybe not having conversations with some of these guys or treating them with the respect they deserve. I can completely agree that potentially is mishandled. I don't have all the context or information to know. The pain of loss is greater than the power of gain. That's why we're hardwired not to change. But you got to be willing to gain. If you want to gain, you got to be able to change. And that's where LSU is right now. It's going to be bumpy as you uproot the staff, as you turn over the roster. And it's something LSU hasn't experienced since Nick left at the end of 2004. Because from Les to Ed, you had to carry over an interim that seamlessly transitioned with a lot of the same staff members, etc. We haven't been through this in a long time. We're set in our ways and our routines in many respects. And that's changing right now. It's uncomfortable for a lot of people. But if you want to win at a level we all think LSU can, I believe it's also necessary. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.